Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the series. As you can see, we're going to be playing some Kennen today. I decided to take a little bit of a different approach with the start of the video. In Champion Select last time with Xerath, I felt like going over runes was a little bit rushed, so instead I'm going to go over runes with you here before the game starts and skip completely through Draft Select and get into the game. So as you can see, Kennen's main summoner page goes to summon Aerie. This is because Kennen is a very strong poking top laner, and with your use of your auto attacks and your Q, you can extremely frequently trigger Aerie. This will outdamage most other options you could have gone with. We'll take a look at some of those other options, but for now, know that this is very good into matchups that you can get frequent poke on with your autos and with your Q. It helps a lot with damage output. So Nimbus Cloak is the choice up at the top here because Mana Flow Bland and Nullifying Orb just aren't really that important to you on Kennen. Obviously, you don't have mana, and you're not too worried about being burst down by AP champions. Nimbus Cloak gives you the ability of flash ulting into fights, which is what Kennen likes to be doing in the mid-game to turn around team fights, and Nimbus Cloak gives you that extra move speed to keep on top of targets. Celerity has a similar value of move speed. It's going to increase that E move speed. It's going to increase that Nimbus Cloak move speed. It's going to increase Proto Belt move speed. It's going to increase a lot of different types of move speed to help you stick on top of targets with that important burst damage, as well as closing the gap on people quickly before they can react. On this selection, I should note, Transcendence and Absolute Focus are both very good choices. Absolute Focus can help you with that poke in lane, and Transcendence will help you get more ability rotations, considering you're not as constrained by mana. Scorch on this third choice. For me, it tends to be between Scorch or Gathering Storm. Both of these choices seem very good to me. Scorch is a bit better if you really want to be focused on that early game poke. It lends a little bit more to help with that extra lane damage, whereas Gathering Storm will help you scale into the mid game, though Kennen already has some pretty good scaling on his own. I'm leaning Scorch, but you could definitely choose otherwise. Do not think you need Water Walking. Now, for your secondary on your sorcerer page, I would highly recommend Domination. Ultimate Hunter is extremely nice considering how Kennen's power is so invested in its ultimate, especially in team fights. If you're in a team fight, you want to have that ultimate prepared, and Ultimate Hunter is going to help with that. I will note, Treasure Hunter, also a very viable option. Treasure Hunter can get you some nice early game money and snowball into that mid game that Kennen's so powerful in. Choose between either of the two. Now, Taste for Blood is extremely reliable in that laning phase of the game, where you can get that extra healing to stay ahead in the poke trades. Those are the two I would recommend from Domination. You could switch Ultimate Hunter with Treasure Hunter if you want that money instead, and you're not too worried about how often you'll have your ultimate ready. Now, for the stat shards, if you're going with this poking build with Summoner Aerie, I highly recommend you take that attack speed. You should be able to get a lot of value out of this, poking the enemy champion with very fast attacks. You can go Adaptive Force if you feel like you don't get to use your auto attacks as much, but attack speed will get a lot of potential value. Now, in the flex slot, I do not think the armor or the magic resist will help you survive that much. You are a very squishy champion that hopefully isn't taking that much damage in the first place. Adaptive Force will be a lot better in ensuring you get the positive side of trades. Now, that said, in the last slot, it's all defensive. Take whatever resistance you're going to be playing into, damage choice you're worried about taking most. Pretty natural for most champions. Now, with that, let's take a look at the second kind of page you could be going for. Now, this page I would be going with if I don't think I have as much potential to poke with my auto attacks and my consistent damage to get Aerie to trigger. Kennen has a pretty nice time trying to trigger Electrocute. With his enhanced W auto attacks and landing a Q, if he just activates W, that's already a second stack of Electrocute. And if you just work one more auto in there, or you land the Q if you haven't already, that's a really easy Electrocute proc. Now, even though he does trigger this super easily, because it has a pretty decently long cooldown, as you can see, 25 to 20 seconds, if you have Aerie and you're triggering Aerie pretty commonly, it'll still outdamage Electrocute in lane. That's why this is kind of a secondary one if you don't think you can meet the conditions of Aerie. Much like when we took Domination as a secondary, Taste for Blood, Ultimate Hunter, which can be changed for Treasure Hunter if you prefer. But in this middle slot, it kind of depends on the level you're playing. Eyeball Collection is pretty consistent and straightforward. You get kills, you get power. It's just nice to have that extra power in your kit. That said, if you are at a higher level where vision becomes a more significant contributor to your victory, Ghost Poro can be a very nice thing to have on Kennen. It's got a pretty good win rate, and it's worth noting that for high level players, that vision may be more important. I'm not a high level player though, so I have all collection. Much like how Sorcery had Domination secondary, Domination, I'm taking Sorcery secondary. As you can see, I'm not actually taking the same runes though. I decided to go with Transcendence and Gathering Storm. This is because with the Electrocute build, I'm going for bursts of my spells, and I kind of prefer to have those spells up more often. I like the cooldown from Transcendence when I'm not just going for consistent poke, and Gathering Storm is because I'm not going for that consistent poke in lane. I'm not leaning as much on Scorch. I'm rather scale into the mid game and get those mid game bursts that Electrocute will help out with. Now again, stat shards, same deal as the other page. Only major difference I'd say is that you might lean towards Adaptive Force more often, considering you're not doing as much auto attacking. I think there's a lot stronger of an argument to take Adaptive Force here. Once again, take your defense shard into whatever opponent matchup you're going with. Now, last but not least, as you can see, I have labeled this Kennen Whack for a reason. You're not going to be using this rune page almost ever. It's not a high win rate necessarily, but I'm bringing it up as a honorable mention of that. Say you are playing into an extremely tanky team. Kennen does have a lot of bursts that might not be able to kill those kinds of tanky targets. However, what you can do instead is go with a Conqueror approach. This will be more focused on sustained damage and healing yourself to last against these tough targets and outlast them. Now, what I would like to mention is that if you're playing with this playstyle, Kennen's straight up burst isn't really going to stack you to the full stacks of Conqueror on its own. If you engage with 0 stacks of Conqueror, you probably won't be getting that much value out of healing, so you'll want to be poking them with a few autos or your Qs ahead of time before you commit to engaging, or else you're not going to get those full stacks and that full value. To go into what you would do as a secondary or as these minor runes with Conqueror, Triumph is nice because that healing will again keep you going. The whole point of this is to stay on the edge of death, to not let yourself fully die, to keep that heal and keep going. You're not really going to be healing up above full health, so overheal is not important. And you don't have mana, so you don't really need Presence of Mind. The energy per second is not that helpful. Kennen really doesn't have that much of a hard time keeping his energy up. Now, Legends Tenacity is because you are going to be trying to sustain yourself with your abilities, and if you get stunned for too long, you will be going down, and you don't want to take that risk. Even though you're healing, you really just can't afford to stay still, because you still will be squishy, even though these tanky targets won't be dealing as much damage. You really don't want to be locked down for too long, and Legends Tenacity will help with that. The lifesteal isn't that important, and the attack speed isn't that important, because I think you'll be more relying on your abilities. Now, Last Stand is really trying to optimize the most out of Conqueror here. You're trying to go in and just be too hard to finish off for them. With your mobility and your healing, you're trying to just stay at the brink of death and deal as much damage as possible to outlast these tanky characters. Now, with Conqueror as your primary, I still think Domination as your secondary is important. Basically, if you're not getting Domination as your primary, you need to be getting that as your secondary, because I cannot emphasize enough how helpful Ultimate Hunter is, and it will also give you a little bit more healing from Taste of Blood. Again, stat shards, same as before. You will be able to get more auto attacks on these tanky characters, so bring the attack speed, not the adaptive force. With that out of the way, I would like to mention that in the game we're about to be going to, it is recorded beforehand, and I do go with the Summoner Airy build that you see here, exactly all these runes, so you can use this as reference for what happens in the game. The only other thing I will mention about the game is that going into it, I decided to ban Silas, because Silas has a unfortunate interaction with Kennen in that Kennen has a very powerful ultimate that kind of helps him be less squishy and vulnerable so he can go in for those strong engagements. Sylas is already a character more effective at going in than Kennen, so when he steals Kennen's very powerful ultimate that helps him go in, Sylas becomes extremely dangerous. Now, Sylas isn't the hardest lane matchup for Kennen because he isn't able to necessarily catch him when he's dodging with his E, but I really don't want to give over that powerful ultimate, so I banned out Sylas. But if you are looking for other potential characters to ban on Kennen, I would recommend characters that can dive on him easily and potentially kill him and expose his vulnerabilities, such as Camille or Pantheon. These characters can be hard for Kennen to deal with, so if you wanted to be more worried about that laning phase, those are champions you can consider. With that out of the way, I'm going to skip all the way through draft select and load screen and all that jazz, and I will see you in the game. All right, it is a rainy day, and to celebrate the occasion, we're going to be bringing the storm in top lane with some Kennen. Now, first thing to go over with Kennen is he is a strong harasser in the top lane. I'll be up against a Garen, so I should be leveraging my auto attacks to get some nice poke on him in lane. Because of that, I'm going to be starting with a Doran's Blade. This will add extra attack damage to my auto attacks. It'll be nice for the poke. Other options, if you're starting out, would be potentially Doran's Ring or a Dark Seal. Doran's Ring will give Kennen some more healing sustained over time. Since he doesn't have mana, he gains healing from the Doran's Ring passive, and Dark Seal gives him a little bit less power and presence in lane, but it does have that potential to snowball, and it's a pretty nice item on most AP characters, like I mentioned in the previous Xerath video. Hopefully everything's going well down there, but we don't really have the ability to make an impact on it, and it looks like Garen isn't going down the match either. Now, the ability I think I'm going to start out with on Kennen, I will briefly mention I'm going Teleport Flash, because Teleport is very nice on Kennen later when he's flanking with his ultimate, so a big part of what he does in the mid game, but early on it's also going to help us in lane. Now, as I was saying, for a starting ability, because I'm up against a Garen, I'm going to want to be going the E level 1. That kind of move speed will be able to make sure I can kite him with my auto attacks, and when he tries to Q at me, he won't actually be able to reach me, because if he does silence me, I can't E after, and thus I can't... I'm going to mention that he's not here. I can't E after he reaches me, and then he gets to use his big spin on me, and I don't want him to do that. Alternatively, when you are starting out, you can go for a Q level 1 if it's into a character that the E doesn't dodge as many important skill shots. It's also viable. One of these two skills is good to start out with, but either one you go with, you should probably be going W level 2, as I will practice soon. I haven't seen the Garen yet, which is strange. Hopefully he's not trying to do something cheesy, but we'll find out. It's a very violent game for the rest of the map so far. I'm just going to ping again to make it clear that he's really not here. Also, I went Q level 2 because I haven't seen Garen. Again, if you actually had someone to fight, I would strongly recommend you take W level 2. But I took Q just because it helps me CS when no one else is here. Now that I actually have all my abilities and I have my W, what I'll be playing for is this passive proc. This will let me get some nice easy poke on Garen. If you didn't know, W level 1 and Q level 1, the W actually ends up doing more damage, the W enhanced auto, than actually landing a Q, which is interesting. I'm just trying to weave my autos in there. And basically, anytime you get a mark on the enemy, you should just be hitting that W early on. It's nice extra damage, and if they don't respect it, it threatens you being able to stun them when you land your Q. And as for ability, I'm going to max. Maxing Q is very standard on Kennen. It looks like Rek'Sai might need some help in the river. Since we have control, I'm going to go over there. I think we might be able to collapse on him here. Ah, he got into the wall. If I had my enhanced auto, might have been able to make more happen. Let me just give a little bit of help on that since we've got this early advantage in lane anyway. Get help convert it over to Kaisa, or Kaisa Rek'Sai having a bit of an extra advantage. You can get the stun on him there, and some extra autos. That cute. Okay, good. We managed to avoid that. So we definitely took a bit of a worse trade than we needed to, because of. We might be able to get there in time. Oh, I moved my screen and it made me miss the Q. Total misplay on my part. So I just let the bit of a misplay in the moment, but still have a pretty strong advantage. Just try to leverage that to push Garen away from wave so he can't get as much XP and farm. If Kennen is going even with his lane opponent, it's pretty frequently a good thing because Kennen scales really well into the mid game, but he can often also go in with an advantage by leveraging his auto attack harassment. So this Garen doesn't have teleport, so him having to recall is a pretty bad thing for him. And I will try to... My game plan is still the same. Poke him down. Make him feel uncomfortable in lane. And then hopefully I can take some aggressive trades to... I missed my Q again. I can take some aggressive trades to then teleport back into lane and then push that advantage. Alright, Kayn is here, so I'm going to use my E to just get away. All he does is get that little auto attack on me, or that ability on me, not a big deal. So, not too worried.
An enemy has been slain.
So I'm mostly just farming and trying to stack up my W. Oh, the last auto from my ranged minion finished the cannon. Alright, I managed to get most of that. A little bit of silence while I was focusing on CSing. I think Garen probably just recalled, or he left lane. It seems like he probably can't afford that much. One thing I will note with Kennen is that while you have your enhanced auto ready from your W passive, it can be best to just farm with your Q, because it's not a long cooldown, it only costs energy, you don't have mana, so you can pretty consistently use it to just secure a minion. It also helps with just making it a bit easier for yourself. Obviously you want your cooldowns ready when you're going for a fight, but it's a lot easier to prep your Q than it is to prep your enhanced auto, so only really use it for farming when you have to. Alright, got some nice poke on him there. It is going to be hard for me to kill Garen because of his sustain and his general tankiness. Can be a bit of a challenge. But it's also going to be hard for him to kill us given our mobility. Oh, I thought I would get that. Is he still in here? No, where did he go? Where does he keep going every time he pushes in wave? If you ever need to clear waves quickly, you can get a nice EW on the wave with Kennen. I'm sure a lot of people are aware of that. Just make sure you still have your E ready when you want to get into combat. That ability is extremely important. Let me just run down here to help Rek'Sai. This Kayn is level 6, which is pretty scary. Yep. Let's stun him so we can get away. All right. So I think the stun from our E actually just saved our life there, because he hit the Q and it dropped me to low enough. I don't know if he has his ult ready necessarily, but if he did, he definitely would have killed us with it. So first back, you definitely want to work towards components towards your mythic. You don't really need to stop for anything before then. Proto Belt on Kennen is extremely standard and also extremely strong. That extra gap closer is very nice for landing your ultimate on people. Mixed with your ease of movement speed, you can get some pretty strong engages going. And if you do land that, you can use it to frequently just blow up squishy targets. So this guy's pretty screwed now. The Rek'Sai was really just keeping him penned in, which meant I could easily just go in for autos and Ws. It is a shame I missed my Q, but really didn't matter in the long run. After you level up your Q, next skill to max is your W. The W definitely just helps out with cooldown and damage. It should be noted there is a build of Kennen that maxes E first, even though we're maxing it last. And that is because E gives attack speed. And there is actually a variant of Kennen that goes on hit with AD, even though he is a squishy character that isn't necessarily an ADC or anything. His interactions with his autos just give him that option, especially with his E giving actually a lot of attack speed as you level it up. Means that if you max E first and you just harass people with autos, you can really take advantage of them. It is a bit harder than AP Kennen. I would not recommend you doing it as your very first game on Kennen, but after a while, if you want to experiment with him, you can give it a go. I might even return to it someday and try it out myself on the channel, but for now, as I'm learning Kennen, just starting out, I'm going to go with the normal AP Kennen. We also have a Caitlyn and a Senna on our team. We don't particularly need more AD right now. Alright, we saw Garen hanging around still, so we know he's not going off and doing anything troublesome. I'm assuming he's just warding the bush, but right now we seem to have double buffs from killing Garen after he killed our jungler earlier, and that means that we have a lot of lane control. I think Garen never came back. Oh, that's because he's in mid lane.
An ally has been slain. Dominating.
I should have pinged earlier. That was definitely a miscalculation on my part. I thought he was just going down into river to get a ward because he didn't actually have lane control, but he was going for the gank and I didn't ping for it, which could have been way worse if Diana didn't totally have it under control. But since she does, I'm just gonna get an extra plate here while Garen's out of position. So you saw I just quickly cast my E and canceled it there. Like I mentioned, it gives some attack speed, which is nice for pushing towers and clearing minion waves and getting extra harass. But also, I don't necessarily need to back quite yet. So I'm gonna push this wave in and then I'm going to. But it also can be canceled early to just get that attack speed. So I just quickly cast it, canceled it, got the attack speed, and hit the tower a few times. And it just helps push it a bit faster, because you can't actually auto-attack while in your E, and it's very important to just use E for as long as you have to, and then take advantage of the attack speed at the end. So let's just get boots and some control wards. And we can head on our way back to top lane. You should, since you have energy, not mana, use your E to get back to lane faster. Just a little bit of extra speed, and it will go a long way, considering you'll have the cooldown and your energy back by the time you get back to lane anyway. Again, just make sure you have it ready for an actual fight. You really need this skill for mobility so you can get an advantage. Looks like Senna's got that under control, which is good. We should be able to push this wave in and then roam with her, possibly, to get a better advantage on other parts of the map. This game's going pretty well so far. Seems like our team's in good shape. Our lane's going pretty well. And we can try to make plays around the map thanks to that winning position. I don't think I need to push tower here. I want to see if I can't help out other places. Speaking of, there's a Kane here. We can just make sure Diana knows about that. Yeah. Make sure she can't get ganked down here. She's a very strong member of our team, and we want her to be in good shape. Let's make sure Gangplank can't turn that kill around on her. All right, that went really well. So I'm glad I was there. I don't know if she even would have lost that fight. She's very strong and seems to be pretty dang good, but I wanted to make sure she was okay, and I was glad I was there to help. I didn't even have to invest my ultimate, so no big cost to it. I'm just using E to get past Garen. I don't plan on using it for a fight, so not a big deal. I did make sure while I was on my way over there to pass through the minion wave, because if you don't know, Kennen's E actually refunds some energy. It costs a lot of energy to use his E. Damn, I was really hoping my autos would be able to do that.
An ally has been slain.
Alright, so he used his flash and his R. Might be able to get a kill on Gangplank if he just roams willy-nilly into the river. He looked like he was headed this direction. Looks like that's not where he's headed. We get behind Garen here, though. I didn't invest my ultimate because I wasn't really doing that much damage to him, and I didn't want to, you know, waste it for no reason, even though I couldn't get the kill. So instead, I'm going to head back to top lane. I really want my ultimate to be used in a position where I'm bursting down a character. The CC is very useful, but it also just does a lot of damage. So either I'm going to use it to kill someone, or I'm going to use it to help in a team fight. Alright, managed to get all that CS. Push out the wave. Diana's really deep in there. Oof, that hurts. But I'm okay. So let's see if we can't get him to just waste his barrel. Alright. Alright, so we were able to use, like I said, our ultimate to secure that kill. It was a bit messy, but I knew I had a big enough lead on that Gangplank that he was very vulnerable. He is building crit, so he's not very defensive anyway. And I knew just with the extra resistances and damage from my ultimate, I was able to win that trade. And then with that advantage, we can also then go take this Rift Herald, which will be nice. And then looks like our team is doing a little bit of trouble in the bot lane. Getting into a bit of trouble in the bot lane, but I think everyone's okay. We're just kind of positioning. How long till dragon? 30 seconds? Yeah. Let's go help him out and let's secure this dragon. We can keep pushing our lead a bit harder and harder, making it very difficult for the enemy to accomplish anything. Didn't quite get the stun on Gangplank there, but he looks like he's pretty screwed. Spends his flash to survive. Get the stun on him. Hopefully my teammates can finish him off. Excellent. All according to plan. So I knew I couldn't actually survive the trade. And then we'll retreat back to Dragon while most of them are dead. No, I guess we're not going to do it because Rek'Sai is dead. That's okay. In that case, I will use this time to recall, finish my boots, and next item we'll be working towards is definitely the Zhonya's Hourglass, because when Kennen ults, he can also pop Zhonya's in order to protect himself. And one thing to note about Kennen is even though he does a bunch of damage and has really good CC, he also is not very defensive. So without the extra resistances from his ultimate, you can like go in, get your big AoE combo and maybe kill someone or even two people maybe, but you also will take a lot of damage in return, especially if you don't end up killing those people. That's why Zhonya's is great, because it gives you the time to wait for your teammates to arrive and take advantage of the fact that you've had a very big, powerful engage without, you know, having to sacrifice yourself in the process. Also gives you time to get your resources back to get a second rotation. And since you are so bursty with your abilities, getting a bunch more of them, pretty good thing. All right, we got a huge dragon lead. We've got a couple Rift Heralds. Everyone on our team is doing pretty good. Senna's died a lot, but that's okay. We'll take this as well as charge up our enhanced auto. Just making sure you have this thing ready as often as possible is a big help for Kennen's damage potential, because having that consistent stun, yeah, that guy is dead. We can leverage that to take the tower. Making sure you have that enhanced auto means you don't have to hit a skill shot to stun someone, which is, you know, pretty dang good. If you could just auto attack, read W, and then hit your E on them, or even use your ultimate, then you can guarantee your Q because they're stunned and they're not dodging. So they got some push in mid lane, but I think we can return that with pushing this tower in top lane. So as you can see, the attacking a tower doesn't actually consume your enhanced auto, but it does prepare it, which means I can very easily push these lanes and threaten a potentially good trade in the process. All right, let's back off here now that we got that huge payout. We can take advantage of that to go buy our Zhonya's. I see that Kane there in the mid lane, but I'm not actually scared of him. So instead, I'm just gonna recall right here and buy my Zhonya's, because I know if I need to get back on the map quickly, I can just teleport back in. Speaking of... no, these guys are pretty screwed already. I'm not gonna teleport into there. There are a couple low health bars, but that Garen, if that Garen silences me as soon as I arrive, I won't even be able to finish them. So let's not take that risk. There's no need to take a bold risk. Kennen does a lot better when you're engaging people who don't even know you're there yet. You can get a pretty strong flank on them. It looks like Garen's just pushing bot lane, but I don't think our team necessarily wants to stop him. They'd rather trade for mid, which I think is viable. Let's see if I can't get in there and cause some havoc. Yeah, here we go. Looks like we got them all. All right. That paid off big time. So that's what I'm talking about. I came in through over their base wall. Just came in from the side where they weren't expecting it with a nice proto belt to close the distance. Use the lightning rush. And that meant a nice 3-person ultimate. And some of them managed to get out of it, but it still gave my team the engage they needed to follow up and finish him off. So Kennen can be really good at starting fights with that tool. It looks like we'll even be able to end here. Well, Gangplank might be able to stop us, but regardless, if we do end here, it looks like we're gonna play it safe. We got a big advantage already. We don't need to play with the risk of our lives. So with that in mind, I don't know if I'm actually gonna get to it with how fast we're kind of winning here, but I just want to mention some other items that Kennen might be building. The next item after this that I would recommend is some more damage. In fact, most of Kennen's remaining items can be committed to damage, but items that are good for damage on Kennen could be something like Shadow Flame, as you saw in the window I just had open. Other good items for damage on Kennen are, of course, Rabadon's Death Cap, if you can afford to buy that inconvenient item. Well, it looks like we're finished up here. I'll continue this summary on the results screen, but I just want to give you a few tips that didn't come up in the game exactly. All right, so here we are on the results screen. I guess I'm going to give it to this Diana because she did pretty heavily snowball this game in our favor, and we ended up playing around her a lot. Helped out very much for our gameplay. Nice, someone actually thought I had a good shot calling. That means a lot to me. But let me finish on some of the thoughts I was having earlier while we're here. So, as I was saying, you get your Hextech Rocket Belt. I'm not going to be accepting that friend request, but I appreciate their interest. Get the Hextech Rocket Belt into Zhonya's with boots. Very extremely standard start on Kennen. Hextech for damage, Zhonya's for survival, and then after that you want to keep buying damage items to make sure you keep up with the curve of bursting squishy characters with your engage. because you don't really need any more utility tools very often. Some damage items I would recommend if you're on your third item would be Shadow Flame or Rabadon's. The other option is a Void Staff. Void Staff, I do recommend, even if you don't get it third, that you definitely get it fourth. Void Staff is extremely effective as an item, even if they don't have a ton of tanks. It just helps you penetrate through any kind of resistance they might be able to build and make sure no matter what they try to build against you, you can really finish them off no matter what. And you don't want to wait until last item to get that Void Staff. It's extremely good, third or fourth, but not fifth. Don't wait for fifth item, please. You can get the Shadow Flame, you can get the Rabadons, but don't bother building both of them before you get Void Staff, because Void Staff will be more effective in getting you through those targets. It's also not that expensive. It really works out very well. I will note, out of all the utility items, you don't really need, say, a Banshee's Veil. You just don't particularly need it. But I will note that Morellonomicons is pretty good item, especially into teams where it's extremely relevant. In this game, the only real target it might have been good against was Kennen, and he wasn't a problem. But if you're going up against like an Aatrox and a Soraka, you're going to want that heal cut. It's just really effective just as a concept, even just beyond this character. And that's like the one utility item I could say, think about sometimes. Last thing I'll bring up on items is that there is the item Horizon Focus for damage. Don't build Horizon Focus on Kennen for your damage source. I know he has a stun, and he can land it pretty consistently with his engage, but keep in mind that it's only going to be after you land your first couple abilities. And that means those first couple abilities aren't getting amplified by Horizon Focus's damage. It's a lot better when your first ability is the stun you'll be using against them. With that said, those are all the kind of things I wanted to go over with build. With that out of the way, I will kind of summarize this game. We had a pretty nice lane matchup. Garen and Kennen, the win rate doesn't actually skew that heavily in Kennen's favor, but I will say in lane phase, Kennen is pretty effective against him in that sense, that I was very easily able to auto-attack him, and his only real ability to interact with me was queuing towards me with his enhanced move speed, and if he does that, I have my E saved most of the time in order to back off with him and stay away from him, and if you just keep up that trade pattern, there isn't too much he can do about it. Just make sure you're farming well, you're poking him when you can, and he should be having a bad time. It didn't have entirely as much of a shutdown on him as I could have. I did try to leverage that advantage to help out Rek'Sai in the jungle, which is nice when you're pushing in. And I think that paid off pretty well because Rek'Sai did pretty good, but again, star of the show, like I mentioned earlier, was definitely this Diana. She snowballed the game, and then we kind of course-corrected accordingly in order to not put as much focus into top lane, so we could roam down and help out Diana making plays, Rek'Sai getting objectives, and just one through another lane. It's important to take an acknowledgement when the strong point on your team isn't quite you, and leverage your personal advantage towards that strong point instead of trying to become your own separate strong point. You're all playing together, so you should try to utilize your character's strengths and abilities in order to help out your team as opposed to just prioritizing yourself. And with those Kennen ultimates, especially that one at the inhibitor and base, we were really able to just tear them apart, get into their base, and they kind of just gave up from there. So that was an interesting experiment. I definitely don't have as much experience on Kennen as I did on Xerath, but it was really cool to learn this character brand new for this week, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to tackle next week. So thank you for watching. See you next time.